Status quo, Joe Biden has finally decided, more like remembered, to grace us all with his decision for his running mate in the 2020 election last weekend. And unsurprisingly, his choice was Kamala Harris, as I kind of predicted. A woman of color, as he promised, of course, who would put the LAPD to shame with how many black men she put in prison for nonviolent offenses. Yikes. During a time of great vitriol and protest against police brutality and a broken justice system, help by falling and can't get up, Joe Biden thought it a wise move to pick a former top cop with a record that contributed to the narrative young people around the country are in the streets protesting against, and neoliberal hacks are in the crib on Twitter, of course, advocating about. It's almost as if the Sniffmeister himself believes in a tough on crime approach, similar to Trump or any other Republican, and picked the vice president who believes the same.
The Biden-Hatch crime bill, as it becomes law, God willing, I hope that we will have ended, once and for all, this notion that is a hangover from the 60s, that somehow Democrats are weak on crime and Democratic presidents are weak on crime and Republicans are tough on crime. The truth is, every major crime bill since 1976 that's come out of this Congress, every minor crime bill has had the name of the Democratic senator from the state of Delaware, Joe Biden, on that bill.
Wow, that's weird, right? But nah, Sniffmaster Joe keeps hot sauce in his bag, so he can't be racist. Oh, damn, sorry, wrong election. He picked a woman of color as his VP, so he's progressive as fuck, right? Nah. Now, drunk Auntie Kalama faced criticism prior for her abysmal attorney general and prosecutor record, most famously during the primary debates from Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard.
Congresswoman Gabbard, you took issue with Senator Harris confronting Vice President Biden at the last debate. You called it a, quote, false accusation that Joe Biden is a racist. What's your response?
I want to bring the conversation back to the broken criminal justice system that is disproportionately negatively impacting black and brown people all across this country today. Now, Senator Harris says she's proud of her record as a prosecutor and that she'll be a prosecutor president, but I'm deeply concerned about this record. There are too many examples to cite, but she put over 1,500 people in jail for marijuana violations and then laughed about it when she was asked if she ever smoked marijuana. She blocked evidence. She blocked evidence that would have freed an innocent man from death row until the courts forced her to do so. She kept people in prison beyond their sentences to use them as cheap labor for the state of California. And she fought to keep cash bail system in place that impacts poor people in the worst kind of way.
Thank you, Congresswoman.
But for some odd reason, the media isn't doing their normal game of ignoring or downplaying her record, but more so absolving her of it, and in some cases hopping in a fucking DeLorean and just changing it. Well, great Scott, how could they do such a thing, you ask? Well, because we still haven't learned the lessons of 2016. What did we learn in 2016? That we shouldn't accept the lesser of two evils because the Democratic Party successfully picks a candidate that serves corporate interests and not the people. Well, at least I thought we learned that, but I guess we didn't. So now we're stuck with a guy that can barely remember what fucking year it is. But I'm here to show you guys that Kamala Harris is not the favorite auntie Twitter loves, but more like the vindictive, conniving, just flat out bitch of an aunt at the barbecue that everybody fucking hates. Now, everybody on Twitter fawning over Senator Harris rebukes and snuffs out any criticism of her. However, I'd be more than willing to wager these same people often keyboard advocate against sex trafficking, rape, and sexual assault. Well, I'd ask those same people if this gentleman is worthy of criticizing Senator Harris.
My career has been based on an understanding, one, that as a prosecutor, my duty was to seek and make sure that the most vulnerable and voiceless among us are protected, and that is why I have personally prosecuted.
Should I put this in my pocket? Yeah. Not outside.
I have personally prosecuted violent crime that includes rape, child molestation, and homicide, and I have also worked my entire career to reform the criminal justice.
I was born and raised Catholic. All my relatives were Catholic. I believed in God. That was my life. I was accepted to Salesian High School, which to me was an honor. Almost immediately after I got to the high school, I was befriended by the vice principal, Father Steve Whelan. The very first incident, I was playing pool and he masturbated in front of me. And I was scared to death. I stood there frozen. I was just a little 70-pound runt. I looked across the room and I thought, geez, I need some help. And Brother Sal Bellanti was watching and enjoying it. And later I found out he was a serial molester rapist himself. When he got out of the PE to go into the showers, he would watch me. He would make comments about me undressing. Then he started calling me into his office and telling me I was bad in class and what am I going to do for him. And then he would attack me. He would stick his hands down my pants. He would just molest me. And then he would tell me if anything happened, nobody would believe my word against the priest. And I believed him. This escalated. He started getting more violent and more rough. And the very last time he attacked me, he dragged me into the room. I actually blacked out and floated away while he was molesting and raping me. Another victim to Terrence Hallinan's office, the DA's office in San Francisco. And we were introduced to Hallinan and another DA's assistant who told us they virtually had all these boxes, about like a room full of files that they had gathered and collected and subpoenaed from the Diocese of San Francisco on all these priests. Bishop Levada at that time was the highest ranking bishop in the United States. Then he became cardinal. So this was the top guy. This was the kingpin in the United States. And we had a champion here that was going to go after him. We thought, well, this is going to go somewhere. These guys are going to be punished. They're going to be held accountable. They're going to be prosecuted.
38-year-old Kamala Harris came out of nowhere and was swept into office as San Francisco's district attorney.
In 2004, Kamala Harris was elected. Everything just went down the tubes. I started out by writing a letter asking for some help or some accessibility to the file. I didn't get any response. So then we made posters and started putting them all over the city, and we got no response. Several media members were also asking for files and stuff, and they were getting nothing. So in 2010, there was a big article in San Francisco Weekly, and they were pestering her office, and then what they got was this false statement that they were protecting victims. It's just a flat-out insult. She could have redacted the names, blacked out the names and left them out. Everything he did to gather information and to try and prosecute and go after them disappeared and went the other way. She shielded and protected them, and we were floored at what happened.
We also want to make sure that when a woman is raped, a child is molested, one human being is killed by another human being, we also want to make sure there's going to be consequence, and serious consequence for those crimes.
Withholding information that would have helped prosecute and expose pedophile priests doesn't sound very ancillary to the plight of sex trafficking, rape, and sexual assault victims. Sounds more counterintuitive to me, but hey, I'm just a radical sexist rapper turned political commentator. However, this wasn't Senator Harris's last rodeo with withholding evidence and information to protect the pockets of the rich and powerful. As Congresswoman Gabbard pointed out during the debate, Kamala Harris withheld evidence that would have freed an innocent man. Well, at least she felt bad about it years after the fact, right? Just like how she felt about the 1,500 non-violent offenders she packed into prisons, or the near 5,000 she was supposed to release from prison, but then filed motions against the United States Supreme Court that ruled for California to reduce the prison population due to overcrowding and inhumane conditions. Wow. Again, just to reiterate to you, any blue will do, folks, Harris and her legal team filed motions that were condemned by judges and legal experts as obstructionist, bad faith, and nonsensical. At one point, suggesting that the Supreme Court lacked the jurisdiction to order a reduction in California's prison population. God, what a trailblazer. Slay, queen. And her horrible record goes on, from threatening to throw poor mothers probably working multiple jobs to provide for their families in prison for their kids committing truancy.
And I believe a child going without an education is tantamount to a crime. So I decided I was going to start prosecuting parents for truancy. Well, this was a little controversial in San Francisco.
To our lackadaisical stance of breaking up big tech companies, to calling young people stupid for being hip to the establishment's fuckery and demanding their government to serve them and not our corporate overlords.
What else do we know about this population, 18 through 24? They are stupid.
I mean, for Christ's sakes, the woman's own fucking father isn't a big fan. And he would probably condemn Joe Biden in favor of a candidate like Bernie or Warren because of his political ideology. But you know what? Let me chill on critiquing Senator Harris because according to the Vote Blue, no matter who, folks, it doesn't matter because Trump bad. Now, don't get me wrong. Don't get it twisted. President Trump is just as full of shit as Joe Biden and Harris. I mean, just look at who he decided to fill the roles within his cabinet. Mike Pompeo, a certified war hawk, currently trying to overthrow Iran and Venezuela while stoking the flames of a new Cold War with China. William Barr, who has ties to Jeffrey Epstein dating back to the 70s, not to mention former Labor Secretary Alex Acosta, who resigned in shame due to the fact that he gave Epstein a sweetheart plea deal in 2007 while serving as the Attorney General of Florida. Secretary of Education Betsy DeVos, who often sounds like she received her education from the same place William H. Macy's kids went. Jesus fuck, the less said about her, the better. But lastly, Secretary of Treasury, Sir Steve Mnuchin, baffles me the most when it comes to President Trump's cabinet picks, because if you're supposedly making America great again, how can you do that with the people responsible for making it the corrupt, failed state that it is? But let's stay on Steve Mnuchin, who honestly looks like the weasel rat that survives every fucking Scorsese movie. Steve Mnuchin was CEO and chairman of One West Bank from around 2009 to 2015, during which, side note, George Soros had ties to that bank as well, having stakes in it. But I digress. During that time period, One West was under investigation by the California State Attorney General's Consumer Law Section for widespread misconduct, specifically fraudulent foreclosure practices, everything from violating notice and waiting period statutes to illegally backdated key documents and effectively gamed foreclosure auctions. They even said that they could have found 1,000 more instances of fraudulent practices, so it was recommended that the California Attorney General move forward with prosecution. The Attorney General decided not to do that, citing lack of evidence. Want to take a gander at whom the sitting Attorney General was at the time? Yep, Kamala Harris. You want to know who donated to Auntie Kamala's senatorial campaign run? Yep, Mr. Steve Mnuchin. Damn, the corruption runs deep. So point being that, like Joe Biden, Kamala Harris is tough on crime when it comes to poor and disenfranchised people, but not the wealthy that fuck over middle to poor working class Americans every day. Damn, Sleepy Joe knows how to sniff them out. And this is also the reason why you see the Trump campaign attacking Kamala in the weakest ways possible, rather than getting to the nitty gritty that a rapper turned political commentator recording and researching this shit in his fucking basement could do. Fuck, I should really be getting paid for this.
If you're good at something, never do it for free.
Yeah, you're right, Joker. Now, the Democratic Party's strategy, as cited by Chuck TikTok Schumer, is to swing Republican and Trump voters. So it leaves me to ask, if only there was a woman of color who served our country during the Iraq War in active duty and still serves to this day, in favor of and has supported prison reform, and who also polled second best behind Andrew Yang when it came to appealing to and possibly swinging Republican and Trump voters. Well, I can't think of anyone. So in closing, no, still not voting for status quo Joe, who's literally offering nothing to the millions of Americans struggling due to the COVID economic depression wrought on by those in charge, and is in fact actively working to continue fucking us over on behalf of the pedophile donor class. And this VP pick of drunk Auntie Kamala further solidifies his "nothing will fundamentally change" comments, because Kamala Harris represents a hollow, vacuous, twisted vision of change meant to deceive and pacify the masses as the country slips further into a fascist corporate oligarchy. Fuck, that was a mouthful. A minority candidate who poses themselves as a progressive but is in fact an empty, moderate, corporatist neoliberal is a trick the American people already fell for. And it's the reason why we have Donald Trump as president. We're fucked. So yeah, sorry guys for the grim ending, but that's honestly how I feel about this Kamala Harris VP pick. Like, it's not inspiring at all. Like, I can't see how it actually helps the guy. Like, I just, like, somehow she managed, like, to get less delegate votes than Tulsi Gabbard. She got no delegate votes at all, in fact. So it's like, all right, bro. But hey, what can you do? So as always, like, comment, subscribe, and share. Emphasis on hopping in them comments. I want to know what y'all think about this, you know. So yeah, go to the Twitter page, you know, the American Autopsy Twitter, the Facebook page, American Autopsy on Facebook as well, and yeah, the American Autopsy IG, where I post funny memes about politics. So yeah, thanks for tuning in. Peace. Be easy.